Imagine this really chilling scenario. You've got the Count of Carmagnola. He's this celebrated war hero, right?
Mm.
A brilliant military leader working for Venice.
Hugely successful.
Totally. And then suddenly he's called back to the city. He gets this grand reception, hero's welcome. He's even supposed to dine with the Doge himself.
Sounds great.
Right. But on his way into the palace, they steer him down a different hallway, across the famous Bridge of Sighs, and straight into a dungeon.
Oh, wow.
And the very next day, on some trumped-up charge, they behead him. Right there in Piazza San Marco, in front of everyone. Horrifying.
Wow. Or think about that other story, the unnamed mercenary back in the Middle Ages. The one who pretty much single-handedly saved the town of Siena from attack.
Yeah, I remember that one.
The people there were so grateful, felt totally indebted to him. So what's his big reward?
What was it?
They killed him, and then they made him their patron saint, worshipped him.
That's brutal, isn't it? And these stories, they're not just, historical oddities. They're really stark illustrations that kind of kick off our deep dive today. We're looking at Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you from the 48 laws of power. And this law, it immediately challenges what we often think about power, about independence.
Yeah, it really does. We usually think freedom means, standing alone, being self-reliant.
Exactly. But this law just flips that completely on its head.
It does. So our mission for you today is to really unpack the profound and, frankly, sometimes unsettling ideas in this law.
We'll look at how it's played out in these dramatic historical moments.
And what it really means to make yourself indispensable, in any situation. We want to offer you a unique way to think about power dynamics.
And all this, it's drawn from a really detailed chapter in this foundational book on power.
Right.
So, okay, at its core, Law 11 puts forward this counterintuitive idea about independence. It basically says to keep your freedom, you have to be needed. You have to be wanted.
Yeah, the more people rely on you, the more sort of freedom you actually have. It encourages you to make people depend on you for their, quote, happiness and prosperity.
And, crucially, never teach them enough so that they can do without you. That part's key.
It really is. And what's so fascinating here is how it completely reframes freedom. Like you said, we think freedom is isolation, self-sufficiency.
Right.
But this view argues that real liberty isn't about needing no one. It's about creating a situation where you're so vital, your skills, your presence, that getting rid of you would just be too costly, too difficult for others.
Which naturally brings up the big question. How on earth do you do that? How do you cultivate that level of indispensability?
That's the million-dollar question, yeah. And the sources, well, they offer some pretty harsh answers through these cautionary tales.
Like the ones we started with.
Yeah.
Carmagnola, the Siena mercenary.
Yeah.
Their fates just perfectly show the danger Law 11 warns about, being replaceable.
Exactly. The mercenary saves the whole town, does this incredible thing, but at the end of the day, he could be replaced. Once the danger passed, his usefulness faded.
And so did his power. They honored him, sure, but only after he was, safely dead.
And Carmagnola, same thing. Brave, successful general.
Yeah.
But he didn't secure his position beyond those immediate battlefield wins.
It's almost like they just assumed their past actions guaranteed their future safety.
Yeah.
Took their power for granted.
Right. But the source warns, and this is pretty stark, sooner or later someone comes along who can do the job as well as they can. Someone younger, fresher, less expensive, less threatening.
Oof, that's cold.
It is. There's that fable, too, about the two horses. It makes the point really vividly.
Oh, yeah. Tell that one.
Okay, so you have two horses. One, the front horse is just toiling away, working super hard, carrying everything. The rear horse is lazy, just letting the other one do all the work. And the lazy horse is even smug about it. Tells the front horse, basically, keep sweating. The harder you work, the more you suffer. But then they get to the tavern, and the owner looks at them and says, why feed two horses when one does all the work? I should give the hard worker all the food it needs and cut the throat of the lazy one. At least I'll get the hide.
And he does it.
And he does it,
Yeah.
just like that. It's brutal, simple, but the message is clear. If you're not needed, you're not just unvalued, you might be discarded.
So, if being replaceable is the ultimate pitfall, how do the masters of power actually create this dependence? Let's pivot. The sources point to Otto von Bismarck as a brilliant example.
Ah, Bismarck, yes.
As a young deputy, back in, 1847, Prussian parliament, he makes this really interesting choice. He doesn't ally himself with the powerful figures.
No, quite the opposite. He allies himself with the weak, indecisive King Frederick William IV.
Which seems counterintuitive again, right? Why not join the winning team?
Well, it was highly strategic, really clever, actually. Bismarck understood, as the source puts it, that joining forces with the powerful can be foolish. They will swallow you up.
Ah, okay. You lose your own identity, your own power base.
Exactly. So instead, he seeks out a weak ruler, someone he can build this relationship of dependency with. He systematically makes himself indispensable. He becomes the king's strength, their intelligence, their spine.
And in doing so, he helps restore the monarchy's power, but at the same time, he cements his own role as completely essential.
It's a masterclass in patience and strategy.
Mm.
And get this, when Frederick dies, the next king, William, actually dislikes Bismarck. A lot. Didn't want him around.
So you'd think Bismarck's out.
You'd think. But William inherits this really tricky political situation. And Bismarck, again, he just insinuated himself. He stands by the new king, pushes him towards firm action when others are wavering.
So he makes himself indispensable again, even to someone who doesn't like him.
Precisely. He becomes the real power behind the throne. He's setting policy. He even maneuvers things so William gets crowned Emperor of Germany.
Incredible.
And the kings, both of them, became so reliant on him that whenever Bismarck even threatened to resign,
They caved.
every time, they yielded. He didn't need to bully or shout. He just made it clear, okay, I'll walk away. You can deal with the mess. Leaving the king, quote, to twist in the wind.
Wow. So creating that absolute necessity makes people do what you want. And you get, as the source says, all the benefits of power without the thorns that come from being a master.
It's power through almost strategic indispensability, not direct command, but making yourself the linchpin.
Okay, so how can you, listening now, apply these ideas? The sources give a few different routes to becoming indispensable.
Right. One of the big ones is having a unique talent or skill, something others just don't have.
Like the story of Louis XI, the Spider King, and his court astrologer. This is a wild one. Louis actually feared the astrologer's influence, maybe even planned to kill him.
Yeah. What happened?
The astrologer gets wind of it, or maybe just senses the danger. When Louis asks him, sort of testingly, how long you have to live, the astrologer cleverly predicts he'll die just 3 days before your majesty.
Oh, brilliant. That's genius.
Isn't it? Louis terrifies for his own life now. Not only spares the astrologer, but protects him, showers him with gifts, makes sure the astrologer stays healthy.
It's pure psychological manipulation based on that perceived unique knowledge. It shows that whether the skill is real or just appears unique and vital, the effect making others believe they need you can be incredibly powerful.
You don't need to be Michelangelo, maybe.
Yeah.
But think about him and Pope Julius II. They argued constantly, famously difficult relationship.
Right.
But the Pope kept seeking Michelangelo out, begging him to stay, because he knew he could never find another Michelangelo. You need, as the book says, a skill that sets you apart from the crowd.
It raises that interesting question, though. Is it about actual indispensability or just the appearance of it?
Good point.
The source does note that while real dependence is obviously stronger, just having the appearance of specialized knowledge or skill can sometimes be enough to convince those above you that they can't manage without you.
Okay, another really powerful idea from the sources is this concept of the intertwining of fates.
Ugh. Ah, yes, the creeping ivy analogy.
Exactly, where you wrapped yourself around the source of power so that it would cause great trauma to cut you away.
And this isn't just like a metaphor. Think about it in practical terms. Maybe you're the only one who truly understands a critical, complex system at work.
Right, some old legacy software nobody else wants to touch.
Exactly. Removing you would mean chaos, a massive overhaul. That's great trauma. Or maybe you've built such deep connections across different departments that your absence would just shatter crucial communication lines.
It makes untangling yourself from the power structure incredibly difficult, almost painful for them.
There's a fantastic real-world example of this involving Harry Cohn.
The head of Columbia Pictures. During the Red Scare.
That's the one. Back in 1951, the height of the Hollywood witch hunt. Now, Cohn was a staunch Republican, apparently admired Mussolini, fiercely anti-communist.
Okay, so you'd expect him to be leading the charge against suspected communists.
Right. But his executives come to him and say, look, we have to fire this screenwriter, John Howard Lawson. He's been named by the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC.
And Cohn?
Cohn flatly refuses, says no.
Despite his own politics. Why?
Because Lawson wasn't just any writer. He was Humphrey Bogart's go-to writer. And Bogart was Columbia's absolute biggest star, a multi-million-dollar asset. Huge, reliable income stream.
Ah, So Cohn realized firing Lawson would risk that whole relationship, risk Bogart, risk the money.
Precisely. He understood that the economic fallout, the trauma of disrupting that incredibly profitable Bogart-Lawson connection, was a much greater cost than whatever heat he'd take from the committee. Economic dependence trumped ideology.
That's fascinating. And it also kind of highlights two different types of indispensability the source talks about, intensive versus extensive power.
Yes, good distinction. Michelangelo, his power was intensive, based on one unique, irreplaceable skill. Genius-level talent.
Right, singular.
Whereas Harry Cohn's situation, or someone like, say, Henry Kissinger, that points more towards extensive power.
How so?
Well, Kissinger, for example, deliberately got involved in so many aspects and departments of the administration. He spread his influence wide.
Okay, so he wasn't just the one guy for one thing. He was involved in lots of things.
Exactly. It created these widespread interdependencies. Lots of people relied on him for different things, which also made him many allies. Trying to remove him would disrupt too much across the board.
So extensive power builds a wider network, makes removal complicated and potentially damaging.
Right. But intensive power, like Michelangelo's, maybe offers more personal freedom because it's less tied to a specific position or a single master. It's about you and your unique ability.
There's one more tactic mentioned, though it sounds a bit darker. The secret intelligence route.
Ah, yeah. Knowing things others don't want known. Holding secrets. Essentially linking your fate with theirs through sensitive information.
J. Edgar Hoover's the classic example, right?
Yeah.
Used his FBI files to become almost untouchable. Could make or break presidents.
Definitely a powerful tool. But, and this is a major warning in the source, it's not really about skill or strategic alliances anymore. It's about leveraging fear and vulnerability.
Yeah, sounds risky.
Hoover didn't just know secrets, he weaponized them. He built dependency based on fear of exposure, not on his utility. And while it gave him immense power over powerful people, the source is really clear. It's a role so full of insecurities and paranoia that the power it provides almost cancels itself out. It brings no peace. It's a dangerous path.
Okay, so this whole strategy, cultivating dependence,
Yeah.
it's powerful, but definitely not simple. There are complexities, warnings.
Absolutely. First, big warning. Don't think that because your master depends on you, they'll like you.
Right, they might actually resent you, fear you even.
Exactly. The source brings up Machiavelli's famous point. It is better to be feared than loved.
Why is that again?
Because fear, Machiavelli argued, is something you can control to a degree. Love is fickle, unpredictable. Dependence based on need or even fear of loss can be more reliable than dependence based on affection.
It's a bit bleak, but makes a certain kind of sense in this context.
There's that image, too, the vines with many thorns.
Oh yeah, describe that.
It paints this picture of vines growing deep, wide roots, twining themselves all around trees, poles, everything. Trying to rip them out would cost such toil and blood, it is easier to let them climb.
It really captures that feeling of, ugh, it's just too hard, too painful to remove this person, even if I want to. The dependency is too ingrained.
Exactly. But there's a crucial flip side here. While you're making others dependent on you, you inevitably become, in some measure, dependent on them, too.
Ah, so it's not total one-way control. It's a mutual entanglement, really.
It has to be, by its nature. Which leads to another point. The trap of seeking complete independence.
Like those big monopolists. J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, aiming for total control.
Yeah, that kind of drive, wanting to eliminate all dependence, be totally self-contained.
And the source argues that's not actually the goal, or even possible.
It argues that drive is often ruinous and fruitless. It leads to isolation, intense pressure, and it stirs up massive resentment from everyone else. The conclusion is pretty striking. Interdependence remains the law. Independence a rare and often fatal exception.
Wow. So chasing absolute freedom might be the very thing that destroys you.
It's a paradox, isn't it? The idea here is that maybe true power, true leverage comes from embracing a strategic interdependence. Creating a situation where, yes, you rely on them to some extent, but they rely on you much more fundamentally.
Almost like a reverse independence. The master needs the servant.
Exactly. The master above you will in essence be your slave, for he will depend on you. That's the ultimate expression of this law's power.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive into Law 11, the big takeaway seems to be that real power, and maybe a surprising kind of freedom, doesn't come from standing alone.
Not from isolated independence, but from strategically, carefully making others dependent on you, cultivating that indispensability.
It's about becoming necessary.
It is. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Go on.
In your own life, could be work, could be personal, where might you be taking your own indispensability for granted? And conversely, where could you perhaps strategically cultivate it a bit more to gain more freedom, more leverage?
Interesting.
Think about how much of what you consider your independence might actually be, underneath it all, a really clever form of strategic interdependence.